Alright, we got some competitive 1v1 action here. And the starting hand isn't looking too great. The Mute Swan is looking pretty good though. Kind of the saving grace. Usually kind of an expensive card to throw down at the start, but thankfully Oceania kind of solves food problems with that starting nectar. Gonna roll with the Easy Ecologist here. It's always a good card to score 2 to 4 points on minimum. And we're just going to throw down this Mute Swan and start digging. We're going first, and we got Chihuahuan Raven in the tray. And it's harder to employ those power 4 birds in the Oceania metagame, but I'm going to end up grabbing it here just to, first of all, deny it, but then keep that option open later for round 2. Opponent keeps 2 birds. And I'm just going to go with the single card draw here and debating on whether I should spend the nectar or not. But I don't really have a clear food gaining option for round 1 since house rules are in effect for the power 4 here. And I'm going to save my nectar for future bird plays. And there's a good option in front of us here as we're digging we'll get like a wetland egg laying bird. And that will let us build out a classic wetland tucking engine. Spotted Towhee for my opponent. That gets them on the board for the round 1 goal. And debating what food I'm going to spend here. I'm going to conserve my nectar just in case I see something off my draws that's going to require an odd food type. Black-crowned night heron, good wetland bomb for my opponent. And I'm going to tuck this avocet. And the night heron gives my opponent a good option to gain nectar from their card draw action. They can rack up a few eggs from their grassland while gaining wheat off the Towhee. And then they can draw cards and convert eggs into nectar. Opponent is laying eggs and getting wheat. I'm going to continue to dig here. Some interesting options in the mannequin and the frigate bird. And I am going to let the mannequin go here. It's a pretty decent card, but I'm not sure I'm even going to be able to get the resources needed to take advantage of that yellow power. And here we do scoop up the pileated woodpecker, so that's going to be a good option to play. Our opponent doesn't have a cavity nest to take advantage of that free egg, so we kind of have a window here to leverage the woodpecker to good effect. Now I don't have a extra cavity nest open here, but I can still gain 1 egg laying on the woodpecker itself. And we're just going to keep digging here, not really seeing any great options. And coming into the end of round 1, I'm going to want to start thinking about securing the food that I need in order to get that raven down right away at the start of round 2. And we're basically there. I can use excess cards to get an extra piece of food off the bird feeder. But I am going to have to consider spending this nectar before the end of the round. And that will likely come in the form of gaining food and playing the pileated woodpecker. My opponent continues to lay eggs and draw cards themselves. I'm starting to wonder if maybe they don't have some power 4 cards themselves. Slow playing round 1 and building up the needed resources in order to be ready to play it in round 2. They do have 2 nectar, so they're going to have to spend that here. We get the pileated woodpecker down. So they did a double play. they played a kinglet into the cassowary, playing the cassowary right on top of the kinglet. So that's a pretty cool little interaction there. Using a low point PAB bird to get the larger cassowary down and getting 4 eggs in the process, as well as a couple extra cherries. So I'm going to gain food here and get an egg on the woodpecker. I considered for a moment as I entered or neared the end of round 1 here of playing the whitethroat, that 0-point bird in my hand, in order to get on the board for the round goal. But I just decided that it really wasn't worth it. I was going to concede that goal to my opponent, and I wasn't really sure I was going to be able to make effective use of the whitethroat, especially in the face of a possibly emerging forest engine backed up by this pileated woodpecker. So my opponent gets that round goal. And the round 2 tray is looking pretty good. I'm going second here in this round. And I suspect my opponent's going to grab the common yellowthroat to throw in front of their heron. And I suspected they might also deny that swift, but they didn't draw cards. They played tree swallow, and it looks like they were really focused on getting a cavity nest down in order to capitalize on my pileated woodpecker. So I take advantage here, and I'm going to draw both those cards. The swift is going to be a really good card for me because it will help me convert some of these excess cards into more points and more eggs. Kakapo is a really good bonus card bird for the end of the game. And we reveal Chipping Sparrow, so I really expect my opponent to grab that. That's one of the best cards in the current metagame, those egg-laying forest birds. And they do grab the sparrow. And I'm just going to go ahead and throw down this raven. And now that I've decided to commit to this grasslands, I don't need to worry about handing eggs to my opponent through the pileated woodpecker. And the raven's going to do what ravens do, gaining 2 nectar here. That's going to be very nice for establishing nectar control over my opponent, especially since they don't seem to be developing a very strong forest engine themselves. And we're going to try to leverage this swift to get some extra eggs into the wetlands and try to win this round goal. And there's the Chipping Sparrow from my opponent. I'm going to throw it on the yellowthroat to improve my card drawing capability. It also expands my total egg capacity in the wetlands for the round goal. And here comes the swift. And my opponent is going to be able to compete very well for this round goal thanks to their Chipping Sparrow in the grasslands. And my plan was to lay eggs here to fight for this round goal, but Franklin's Gull and Laughing Kookaburra have been flipped up in the tray. My opponent played Brant there to scoop up 3 birds out of the tray. And we had a pretty good flip here. Now it's going to be harder to use the Power 4 on this board. Its eggs are going to be really tight. But the white-throated swift is really going to come through here, helping to supplement extra egg production. Taking extra cards off the Franklin's Gull and turning those into 2 points each, and helping to buffer against the expenses of the raven and the Franklin's Gull spending 2 eggs per activation of the grasslands. My opponent lays eggs, and I have to consider how I'm going to play this last round, or this last turn of round 2. I'm chucking a card to get an extra egg. The whitethroat can go. Spreading my eggs around in case I see oolages here. Now I have to get rid of another card, and I think about the kookaburra. And it would be nice to get that extra food production from the grasslands activation. But I decide that I'm probably not going to need it, despite how nice it would be. And here I can't take nectar because it's the end of the round, and I'm going to just take 2 fish. And my opponent wins the round 2 goal as well. Here comes Franklin's Gull. Round 3 Gull can put in quite a bit of work. I have seen that quite a bit on the core board, but I'm not too sure how that is going to pan out in general in the Oceania metagame. But I decide that we're going to go for classic power here, and really we're supported by the white-throated swift's egg production. More card draw from my opponent. They have a huge hand, so they're either building into Benelli's and Eastern Imperial Eagle, or they're really just having bad luck on their draw. Or maybe they have an emergent Chiff Chaff or Chaffinch engine on deck. Warbler can go. And the scissor-tailed flycatcher is a really nice bomb, and it lines up really well with the round 3 goal of worms and food cost. And there's the Chiff Chaff making an appearance. I kind of suspect that my opponent will grab that. I don't feel too concerned about trying to deny it should it come back around to me, because I really don't think the Chiff Chaff is going to be able to mount much of an offense here at this point in the game. Kind of halfway through round 3. And I really feel like I'm starting to gain more momentum than my opponent, even though point generation is kind of tight because the Gull and the Raven are spending 2 eggs per activation. So there's a Northern Goshawk, the 5-point version of Benelli's Eagle, from my opponent here. I'm looking at the Belsvirio for the round goal, and it's just a decent bonus card bird itself. Australian Pipit, I kind of do a double take here. That could be a decent capstone on my grasslands. Slowly building eggs, slowly building nectar. That's kind of an annoyance here, only gaining 2 food per activation. 3 food cost birds require 2 activations of the Raven, so it's going to take 2 turns in order to play 1 3 food cost bird. And that's kind of where we're at with the scissor-tailed flycatcher. My opponent draws more cards, and we're going to drop our flycatcher, spending nectar in the process, taking the lead on the grassland nectar points. My opponent draws even more cards, so they must be having some bad luck here is what I'm thinking. Now I could play the Pipit, and that will allow me to get 1 more egg on my next grassland activation, but I decide to just run my grasslands here and accumulate more nectar, and I'm debating the extra worm here from my flycatcher. And I want to try to maximize my nectar use before the end of the round here. So that requires me to just run my grasslands now. A couple decent birds. Tanager is a decent 6-point body. I kind of deliberate here which one is going to be more useful. Ultimately, it doesn't really matter. I decided to stick with the hummingbird. So now I have 3 nectar here at the end of the round, and I'm going to play my frigate bird, which gives me +1 worm cost bird for the round goal, and it's just a 9-point bomb. And there we see a double play from my opponent using the Cisticola, getting 2 more worm-eating birds down. Good play by them. And here comes the frigate bird, using 3 nectar in the wetlands. That allows us to take the lead there, and my opponent has taken the lead on the grassland nectar points, thanks to their double play. And we managed to squeak out this round goal. We needed it. And round 4 goal is eggs in the grasslands, and my opponent is going to be very competitive on that as well. They've done a really good job all game of staying on top of these round goals, and they have far more nest capacity than I do, so they're going to be able to likely win this round goal as well. Going to skip the Franklin's Gull in order to maintain some egg capacity, or egg volume, I should say. And my opponent plays a Plains Wanderer here, so that's a little bit scary for bonus cards. They're going to get to look at 5 and keep 1. And here comes the Pipit. It's a 1-point play now, but it will tuck 5 cards from the deck. So it'll be a 8-point play minus 2 egg cost is a 6-point play here, which is equivalent to running my grasslands. But it expands my nest capacity as well and gives me a shot of stealing this round goal. Now ideally, especially with that ecologist bonus card, it would be great to get both the Kakapo and the Bell's Vireo down, but as I close in here on the end of the game, it doesn't look like I'm going to be able to get both. I don't have the amount of turns that I need in order to gain 4 food and play both birds. I only have 3 activations left. Spreading my eggs around a bit just in case I see Oologist. Skip the worm. I am going to draw 2 cards here. I want to keep the Kakapo and the Bell's Vireo for as long as possible. 2 more Nectar. And the Nectar will allow me to take the Nectar points in the forest here. My opponent lays eggs here, as expected, closing in on the end of the game. Skipping the worm. Going to skip the egg here as well. Skip the draw off the Franklin's Gull. Tuck the Blue Throat. And I'm going to skip the Raven as well to conserve eggs. We only have 1 more activation left, and that's going to be to play the Kakapo. And hopefully we see an amazing bonus card pull off that. And my opponent can win this round goal here if they want. They can lay 4 eggs and fill up their grasslands in its entirety. And my opponent plays another tricky Pab Predator play. They played one of those low-cost PAB birds and played the red kite right on top of it. So they're not going to win this round goal now. And I'm looking at that and thinking they must have really good bonus card interaction with that red kite. So here comes the Kakapo. I have to spend an egg out of my grasslands. And we managed to just barely win this round goal. Here comes the Pipit, plus 5 points. And here comes the Kakapo, and a total whiff on all 4 bonus cards. Very depressing. And that, when you see this type of thing with these bonus card birds at the end of the game, that's like, oh man, I just lost. Kind of just sit here for a moment in disbelief, just not believing what I'm seeing, but that's the way it rolls sometimes. Alright, so we win the Forest Nectar. We should tie here. And we're going to win the Wetland Nectar, so 12 point rather. Alright, so if you like that Oceania action, do me a favor and hit that subscribe button. I'd really appreciate it. Help me hit 700 subs. Ooh, good bonus cards for my opponent. Pretty even here. Tucked cards, we should do well, and we should win on Nectar points, 103 to 94, so pretty close game yet, and my opponent did very well considering how unassuming their board actually looked. And we can see Omnivore Expert and Platform Builder, and that red kite really landed on those two. So, alright, thanks for watching everyone, I really appreciate it.